Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Law with me, CA Preeti Agarwal. So, in my earlier session, I had discussed all the clauses beginning with the letter C, D, and E. So, we discussed the meaning of charge, chief executive officer, chief financial officer. So, CEO is a person who is designated as such. CFO is a person who is appointed as such. Company defined under Section 2, Clause 20 means a company which is incorporated under this Act. This means the Companies Act 2013 or any other previous law. After that, we also discussed that there are various types of companies classified on the basis of liability, company limited by guarantee, where the members are liable to pay the amount of guarantee. This amount will be payable at the time of winding up. Then you also have company limited by shares. It means that the liability is limited to the amount unpaid on shares, and the face value is the maximum amount that we will give. Then we also discussed meaning of the word contributory. Now, contributory means a person who will contribute at the time of winding up. But we also discussed that even a person holding fully paid up shares is called a contributory. So basically, someone who gives at the time of winding up is a contributory. If you have paid the full amount, that is the entire face value is paid, you are called a contributory, but you will not contribute anything because you have already fully paid up the share. So a person who is liable to contribute is a contributory, but even a person holding fully paid up shares is called a contributory, although he is not going to pay anything. Control, yes, this is relevant with the it is relevant for the concept of holding and subsidiary. Control means I have the power to either appoint or remove directors of your company. It means I can control. I can control the management or the decision making, policy making. Even promoters, the definition of promoter includes the word control. Yes. Debenture, they are nothing but debentures are loan taken by the company. So there are various modes of raising finance, equity being the most popular one. But yes, if you want money for a very short period of time, okay, maybe like repayable within 10 years, then debentures is a very good option. So instead of going to the bank, we go to the public, we raise money in the form of loan, and that is known as a debenture. So it is nothing but an instrument, evidence that is showing a debt. It means the company owes money to the outsider. Here we also discussed that there are certain instruments which are not considered as debentures. Deposit means any receipt by way of loan or deposit or any other form. There are certain receipts which are not considered deposit, that is covered in Rule 2 of the Company's Acceptance of Deposit Rules 2014. Then we have meaning of the word director who is appointed to the board. Dividend includes interim dividend. It means that the provisions applicable to final dividend apply to interim dividend also. So that was the meaning assigned to it. Then we discussed the definition of employee stock option. It's an option, it's not a compulsion. If you want, you can purchase the shares of the company, and it's not compulsory. Let's say that the exercise price is 100 and the market price is 120. Then this is in the money. I will exercise this option. I will get the shares at 100. I can sell it in the market at 120, thus earning a profit of 20 rupees. But what if the market price reduces to 80 rupees? Then it is better to buy from the market than to exercise the option. So this is the employee stock option. Then we discussed the concept of expert. It was defined for the first time in the Companies Act 2013. Now, expert includes an engineer, valuer, chartered accountant, company secretary, cost accountant, any person who has the authority or the power to issue a certificate pursuant to the law or for the time being in force. So whatever law is applicable to him, if that law allows him to issue a certificate, then he is known as an expert, like a doctor. He can also issue certificate, a medical certificate. He's also an expert. Now, this concept we will study when we come to the chapter prospectus. Okay, so there we need an expert. In today's session, we are going to cover all the clauses beginning with the letter F, G, okay, H, I, you don't have J, K, L, and M. Many clauses to be covered in today's session. But yes, before that, I have a small story for you. So these are the clauses that begin with the letter F. Let us go through them one by one. So we have clause 39, financial institution, clause 40, financial statement, 41, financial year, 42, foreign company, and 43, free reserves. Let's make a story around this. So money can be provided, like, till my previous session, we were discussing about the various ways to raise finance. So equity is one. Then you can also raise money in the form of debentures. But money can be provided by financial institution also. So if we create a link between the story, it will be easy for you to memorize the entire story at one go. Okay. Now, money can be provided by financial institutions also. All they require is our financial statement. So section 2 clause 39 financial institution, 2 clause 40 financial statement. Okay, so I have written the clause number also. So money can be provided by financial institutions. All they require is our financial statement. I hope the statement for this financial year is ready. Yes. So as usual, this is conversation which we have, I think, between two parties or just ourselves and the mind. I hope the statement for financial year is ready. So what if you are a foreign company? Not every company has free reserves. You have to approach people for their money. So let's go to the financial institution. Did you get the story? So money can be provided by the financial institutions. All they require is our financial statement. I hope the statement for this financial year is ready. So what if you are a foreign company? Not every company has free reserves. You will have to raise money. Okay. Then these are the clauses. Okay, I need to give you time to copy. So do that now. Okay, let us continue. Got it. These are the clauses which begin with the letter G. There are just two clauses, so there's no story. So clause 44 talks about global depository receipt. 45 talks about government company. This is an important section for exam. Clauses starting with the letter H. So we have clause 46, holding company. And clauses starting with the letter I. Yes, we have independent director. Indian depository receipt, there's no story for it because I couldn't link anything, to create the story. So independent director, Indian depository receipt, interested director, and issued capital. Ma'am, is it okay if we don't memorize these sections? Yes. Anyways, this is not applicable for your syllabus. So why waste time in memorizing it? This is not applicable for your syllabus. So let it be. But there will be a gap, okay? So there will be a gap and you can write that I don't want to remember 47 to 50. That is how you can memorize. I don't want to remember. Then we have clauses starting with the letter K. There's no story. There's just one clause. Key managerial personnel, clause 51. Yes, this clause number is important. 52 talks about listed company, sort of important. Then these are clauses starting with the letter M. So clause 53, 54, 55, 56, we have manager, managing director, member, and memorandum. Now, all right, we have appointed the directors. See, here we had appointed the directors. Yes. So we have appointed the directors. Now it is time to appoint the manager and managing director. Consult the members regarding this appointment. Did all of you read the memorandum properly? Can we go ahead with these appointments? Let me add that also for you. Can we go ahead with these appointments? So this ends our story. Okay. Now, in your notebook, please write this. All right, we have now appointed the directors. It is time to appoint the manager and managing director. Have you consulted the members? Have you read the memorandum? Now, can we go ahead with the appointments? Okay. So, yes, now take time and copy all this. Okay, done. This is the story. Okay, so now we are ready to proceed. So, on this note, let us now discuss all the clauses beginning with the letter F. Okay, so we have gone through all the section numbers. Let us now go through the clauses that begin with the letter F. The first is clause 39, which defines a financial institution. It's not covered in your syllabus. Then we have the definition of a financial statement. This is something which you must have come across many times in law as well as in accounts. We always keep hearing about the company is required to prepare the financial statements. These financial statements are then audited by the auditor. These financial statements are then given to the members. So there is a lot of mention of the financial statements in company law. So let us also define what is covered in the word financial statement in that term. Okay. Now, I have a small note for that. I don't think that, they may ask case-based question on this, but yes, they do it in a combination. Okay. They will say that this is a case, uh, a question will be given. You need to answer that, and separately they will say define financial statement. Or a 2-mark question can be asked on the definition of financial statement. That is how it is generally framed. Okay. So the weightage of this definition is 2 marks. Now, what I have done is I have prepared a small chart for you so that it helps you to understand the relevance of the items included or considered as financial statements of the company. So if we see, the definition is given under section 2 clause 40. Financial statement of the company includes, okay. So what is included in the financial statement? You have the balance sheet, profit and loss account, but if your company is a non-profit organization, then instead of profit and loss, you will prepare the income and expenditure account. Very good. Then you have the cash flow statement, statement of changes in equity, if it is applicable, and explanatory note. Now we know that this is the definition. So what is included in financial statement? You have balance sheet, profit and loss account, or income and expenditure account, cash flow statement, statement of changes in equity if applicable, and explanatory note. But what is the relevance of these statements? Like if I am preparing the balance sheet, what does it indicate? Ma'am, we have been studying this since 11th standard. I don't think this at this stage we need to understand why balance sheet is important. But when you go and enroll for articleship, these are some basic concepts and knowledge that you need to have. So balance sheet is a statement of the financial position of the company at a point in time. That is why we say balance sheet prepared as on 31st of March. It means that it is showing the financial position of the company as on a particular date. So balance sheet is always prepared showing the financial position of the company on a particular date. Like I want to know today, what is the financial position of my company? So if I am preparing the balance sheet, then I will prepare it as on today. Okay. So it always shows the financial position of the company at a given point in time, whereas profit and loss account is for a period of time. Okay. So we have from 1st of April to 31st of March. Profit and loss account is a statement of operation or profit and loss over a period of time. Like for example, a quarter or a year. Nowadays, it becomes very difficult for the auditors to check the profit and loss or the books of accounts for the entire year because of the volume of business. So we now audit. These are known as quarterly reviews or limited review. So limited review means you audit the accounts for only 3 months, okay, for 1 quarter. So like this, they go 4 times. So I remember we would also go for limited reviews. So first quarter, then second quarter, which makes half year, then third quarter, and then fourth quarter. We used to audit the last quarter and also the consolidated statements, or the balance sheet position as and year-end accounts, etc. So I still remember those days. Sometimes we did not have any work, but then there were times wherein we used to work continuously till 11 o'clock in the night. At least it was easy for us girls because we had to go home, so we were allowed to leave at 11 o'clock. But the guys were made to sit like till 2 and 3 o'clock. I still remember. I remember my first audit. Actually, it was in a company in Mumbai known as the Great Eastern Shipping. We used to call it GE Shipping. Okay, and I was very new. So I remember my senior, her name was Thriti, and I learned a lot from her. Uh, and she used to allow me to work independently. And there were times when she would scold me also if something went wrong. But then she was a very cool boss, I should say, and she used to manage everything very well. And I really had a good time with her. So it's very important that you do articleship in a firm wherein you get a lot of exposure, and I think that is possible when you go for a mid-sized firm. Okay, don't go for a very small-sized firm. Go for a mid-sized firm, and yes, if you're lucky, you will get to audit a different various sectors. Like I was very lucky when I in my first year itself, I got to audit a shipping company, then a manufacturing company, mutual fund, a trust, and what else? I forgot now. Uh, yeah, that's it, I think. So a lot of variety. I cannot recollect right now. Yes, this was because there was so much of work that we did. But yes, in my first year, I was very lucky. By the end of year one, I was allowed to, I was given the opportunity actually to lead a small audit, and I did that independently. So I was very happy when I went for the partners review, and I had an article to help me. So I just completed my first year of articleship, and I had an article to help me with the assignments. I was very happy. That was a very proud moment for me, actually. So yes, getting back to this, where we went to articleship days. Okay, so statement of profit and loss is over a period of time like a quarter or a year. And what is the meaning of cash flow statement? What is included in that? So it looks at the cash position of the company, like how much is to be paid to the creditor, how much we are going to receive from the debtors, how much cash the company is going to keep for its growth, investment, etc. So it basically shows the movement of cash throughout the year. So we start with the opening balance, and then we add the receipts, and we also mention the payments that are to be made, with the commitments, how much we are keeping aside for our growth, investments, etc. And we arrive at the closing balance of cash. So that is how we try to manage and understand the flow of cash, where it is parked and how it is spent. Then we have the statement of changes in equity if applicable. It provides detailed information about the movement in equity, share capital over an accounting period. So what is the movement, how many shares were issued, etc. Such movement is also required to be mentioned as per Schedule 3 of the Companies Act, which provides the pro forma of the balance sheet and profit and loss account. This is to be presented as a part of notes to account. So it is required by Schedule 3 of the Companies Act. Explanatory note. Now, there are certain things which you cannot mention in the balance sheet or the profit and loss account. That is mentioned in the explanatory note. Also, there are certain items which we need to explain, like how we have arrived at that amount, how the calculations are made, what method of accounting we are using, what method of valuation we are using. Like we are valuing stock using the FIFO method, or this is how we have valued the gratuity payable to the employees. This is how we have calculated depreciation. So if you want to show some calculation, if you want to show the basis for arriving at that amount, if you want to show the policies that you have applied, if you want to give explanation to that particular item of the accounts, then all that is written in the explanatory note. It helps the reader to understand the financial statements and what they are trying to convey. So the accounting policies and explanation of the amount, how we have arrived at, is given in the explanatory note. So guys, please pause the video and write this in your notebook. If possible, please prepare this chart as it is. You can use two sides of the book. Okay. Go to a page wherein you have a good amount of space, or just turn your book and write. Okay. So this is done, and continue writing. All right. Now let us read the definition of financial statements. It will now be very easy for us to understand now that we have understood the relevance of what is included in the financial statement. So it has, okay, in relation to a company, because the financial statements that we are discussing is with in relation to a company. It includes, you will highlight along with me. Let's highlight balance sheet, profit and loss account. But if you are a non-profit organization, then it is the income and expenditure account, cash flow statement, statement of changes in equity, if it is applicable, and explanatory note. Generally, statement of changes in equity is applicable to a company to which the Ind AS is applicable. Now, in case of a one-person company, small company, dormant company, now these are not new words. We know what is a one-person company. It has only one person as the member, minimum one, maximum also one. Small company, yes, it is defined under section 2, clause 85 of the Companies Act. We are going to discuss it later. It is nothing but a small-sized private company having certain privileges. Then you have dormant company. We have just incorporated a company. We have not yet started business in this company. There are not many transactions. We are just retaining a few employees and paying the charges to ROC, like filing charges. Other than that, there is no other transaction, no significant accounting transaction. So for the time being, we have obtained the status of dormant company for certain privileges. Then you have a private company, but if such private company is a startup, then their financial statements may not include cash flow statement. The word is written may. If you want to include, you may include, but it is okay even if you do not include. So you have a one-person company, small company, dormant company, private company only if it is a startup, then it may not include cash flow statement. Now the exception, modification, adaptations, they are applicable to a private company which has not defaulted in filing the financial statements under section 137. These financial statements are to be filed with ROC, or they have not defaulted in filing the annual return under section 92. This we are going to study in the 7th chapter, that is management and administration. Annual return is to be filed annually. It's a mandatory requirement for every company. And it provides basically the non-financial, there is financial information, but also stresses on the non-financial information that is provided. All right. Do we need to memorize this? It is okay even if you leave it, but if you are able to memorize it, nothing like it. Now, how to learn this definition? It is always good to write and practice, but make small notes in the left-hand margin. This is how I would prepare notes when I was studying. Okay. So balance sheet, just write balance sheet, then write profit and loss account or income and expenditure account. Then you have the cash flow statement. You have statement for changes in equity. So I write this changes in equity. Triangle means there are changes, and you have the explanatory note. Okay. So by writing it in the left hand margin, you are actually trying to memorize the pointers. Yes. So this is how you will learn the definition. Now, if you want to know what is a startup, I have a small note for it, although you need not learn it, but you should be aware of it because this will come many times in the Companies Act. What is the meaning of startup or startup company? They will just mention this. What is startup and what is a startup company? So you just need to be aware. I don't think this will be asked in the exam. You need not learn the definition. It is a private company incorporated under the Companies Act or under the 1956 Act. It is recognized as a startup in accordance with the notification issued by the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Ministry of Commerce. As such, the definition is quite vague. It does not actually define a startup. But the benefit of a startup is available for 10 years. So there are certain relaxations because you're a startup company. We will give you certain relaxation from the compliances. Okay. So that is the benefit of a startup. If you want, you can just pause the video and write this. Okay. So let us continue our discussion. Next, we have the concept of financial year. Now, I'm going to discuss this in detail. The reason is that variety of questions can be asked on this. Sometimes they say just define financial year. Sometimes they may give you a case-based question and then you need to apply this concept. But for that, you need to write the definition. Yes. So let us go through the definition of financial year and then I have a note and all your doubts will be clear over there when we actually take example with the years. Okay. Now pay attention. What is the meaning of financial year? Now, before I discuss what is the meaning of the financial year, let us understand what is the meaning of year. See, whenever we use the word year, it gives an impression that we are talking about calendar year. Yes. When you say Happy New Year, you mean the period from Jan to December. Yes. That is why it is very important for us to understand these terms separately. Like year means calendar year, whereas and that is beginning from 1st of Jan to 31st of December. Whereas the word financial year, it is a period beginning from 1st of April to 31st of March. All right. So what is the meaning of the word year? Whenever you see the word year, it generally means calendar year. But when I use the word financial year, it is a period beginning from 1st April to 31st of March. And where is it written? It is mentioned in clause 41. So why do we need to define this term in the Companies Act? Because wherever the word financial year is mentioned in the Companies Act, and it is mentioned in many places, whenever the word financial year is mentioned in the Companies Act, it means the period beginning from 1st of April to 31st of March. So that is why it is important for us to define. In relation to a company or a body corporate, see, it is so beautifully defined. I'm not defining financial year with respect to, let's say, a school or a college. I am defining it in relation to a company. Let's highlight that. I'm defining it in relation to a company or a body corporate. We had discussed the meaning of the word body corporate in clause 11. It means it simply means any organization having separate legal identity in the eyes of law. Okay. This includes the companies incorporated in India as well as outside India. Whereas company word defined under section 2 clause 20 includes only those companies which are registered in India and having a place of business in India. Yes. Registered office, not place of business, but registered office in India. So they are incorporated in India and have a registered office in India. Body corporate is a very wide term. Okay, so this is how we revise. Whenever you see the word, go back to the definition, revise it, and then you proceed. So this is how you multiple times you will revise the concept and ultimately you will be able to learn it word by word. So financial year, now in what context are we reading this definition? We are reading this definition in the context of a company or a body corporate. So in relation to a company or a body corporate, it means, so see, this is how I would learn the definition. I would break it into small parts. Like, in relation to a company or a body corporate. This is how I would remember that particular part together in relation to a company or a body corporate. Then I would proceed. It means period ending on 31st March of every year. Okay, it means the period ending on 31st March every year. And when it is incorporated on, please highlight the word on. Okay, on or after first day of January of a year, then it is a period ending on 31st March of the following year, in respect of which the financial statement of the company or body corporate is made up. Now we have broken this definition into various parts. Let us see if we are able to learn it now. First we will learn and then we will discuss it, okay? So in relation to a company or a body corporate, financial year means the period ending on 31st March every year. If the company is incorporated either on or after 1st of January of the year, the period ending on 31st March of the following year, in respect of which the financial statement of the company or a body corporate is made up. So because we have divided this into various parts, it is now possible for me to break and learn the definition. Now let us understand each part separately. Yes, we are defining the financial year in relation to a company or a body corporate. So keep these organizations in mind and read the definition. It is applicable only to a company or a body corporate. It is a period which ends on 31st March of every year. So the period between 1st April to 31st March is considered as the financial year. But what if my company is incorporated on or after? See, on word is very important because if it is incorporated on 1st January, then also this provision is applicable. If it is incorporated after 1st of January, then also this part of the provision is applicable. See, students, generally the financial statements are prepared for a period of 12 months. So 1st April to 31st of March, that gives me 12 months. But what if that my company is incorporated on, let's say, 1st of January 2027? Now imagine my company is incorporated on 1st January 2027 and you say that the period will end, that is the first financial year will end on 31st of March 2027. What accounting and what kind of a financial statement will I prepare for the first 3 months? See, generally what happens when you start a new business, the first few months are just spent in setting up the office, understanding the business, entering into various contracts. You hardly incur any financial transactions. So what will you write in your financial statements? So 3 months is a very short period and you cannot expect that everything will happen smoothly. So we have given them an option. We say, you don't worry. If you are incorporated either on 1st of Jan or any time thereafter, we understand that your period cannot end on 31st of March. So we are allowing you to end your first financial year. Now I'm talking only about the first financial year. We are allowing you to end your first financial year on 31st March of the following year. Following will be 2028. So can I say that in case the company is incorporated either on or after 1st of January, their first financial year may be for a maximum period of 15 months. Normally, it is only for a period of 12 months. But in certain circumstances, we are allowing for the financial year to extend up to 15 months, not more than 15 months. Okay. Ma'am, in this case, now what will happen for the second financial year? Second financial year will remain for 12 months only. This applies only when you are incorporated in a period where it is not possible for you to make the financial statements. That is why we are allowing you to make it for 15 months. Okay. But that's the maximum. 15 months time is the maximum. You cannot say, I want to make it in on 31st March 2029. That is not allowed. Okay. So it is a period ending on 31st March. But if the company is incorporated on or after 1st day of January, then the period ending on 31st March of the following year. Okay. In respect of which the financial statements is made. Let us first take examples to understand this and then we will read the proviso. Okay. Now, in your notebook, you can write it later on, but first allow me to frame the examples and give you, and then you can copy it. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, I'll give the heading of financial year. Whenever you write any note in your notebook, please give the heading so that you know that the note relates to this concept. Okay. Now, if the company is incorporated on, okay, I'll give you the date. You tell me when the financial year ends. Okay. Now, if the company is incorporated, let's say on 2nd of May 2027, You tell me, when will the first financial year end? I'm talking only about the first financial year, okay? I'm not talking about subsequent, because subsequent will be for 12 months only. Yes, when will it end? It will end on 31st of March 2028. Okay, this period is less than 12 months because the company was incorporated on 2nd May. So an exact period of 12 months is not possible. Second example. Now, what if the company is, let's say, incorporated on 31st of December 2027? Now, you tell me, when will the first financial year end? Oh, it's not a tricky one. It's a simple one. Yes, it will end on 31st of March 2028. Okay. What if the company is incorporated on 1st of Jan 2028? Yes, it will end on 31st of March 2029. Okay. So can I say that in this case, my first financial year is maximum 15 months? Okay, what about the second financial year in this case? My second financial year will be from 1st of April 2029 to 31st. I'll just shift it over here. I don't have. So my second financial year will be from 1st April 2029 to 31st of March 2030. This will be for 12 months. Okay. This is maximum 15 months. Right? What if, let me give you another example. What if the company was incorporated on 20th Feb? See, on or after 1st of January, if the company is incorporated on 20th Feb, even then, the first year will end on 31st of, okay? So even then, the first year will end on 31st March 2029. Subsequently, yes, second year, it will end properly for a period of 12 months. Right? Okay. Finished writing? Now, if you have understood this, let us now discuss one question. And here the year is ending. The company was incorporated, okay, on 31st of December 2027. And you are saying that the year will end on 31st of March 2028. So here also the accounts are being prepared for technically 3 months. Understood? Although your company is incorporated on 31st of December, you are still asking the company to prepare accounts for 3 months. But why? That if the company is incorporated on 1st Jan, just the next day, you are allowing the company to prepare accounts for 15 months. Why not allow the company to again prepare the accounts for just 3 months? What difference will it make in just one day? See, guys, we had to decide on some date. We had to allow the companies to prepare the accounts for an extended period of time, because we know it is not possible and it doesn't make any sense to make accounts for 1 or 2 months. So because we had to come up with a date, they mentioned 1st of January, and this also brings about a standard rule for all. Otherwise, people will say, no, I'm comfortable preparing accounts for 3 months. Someone will say, no, how will I prepare only for 3 months? I need extended time limit. So we cannot entertain the demands of various companies. You are comfortable, others may not be comfortable preparing accounts for 3 months. So what we have decided, that nothing doing. If you are incorporated on or after 1st of Jan, you will prepare your accounts till 31st of March following year. So this is just to bring about a standardization and to tell the companies that this is the law, you have to follow it. Even if you are comfortable, we are not going to allow you to prepare the accounts till 31st March 28. You have to go to the following year. So this is just because we want to bring a standard approach for all the companies. Okay? Otherwise, there is no other reason. Now, please write this in your notebook. Done. Okay. Let us read the proviso also. Provided that where a company or a provided that where a company or a body corporate which is either the holding company, let me highlight it for you, which is either the holding company or a subsidiary company or an associate of a company incorporated outside India. Okay. So I have written a note over here. I have put an asterisk. So we will refer to this note over here. The term company incorporated outside India refers to a foreign company incorporated under the law applicable for the constitution of the company outside India. Okay. So company incorporated outside India refers to a foreign company following the rules applicable to the incorporation over there. In simple words, it is a company incorporated outside India, but it has either a holding company in India or a subsidiary or an associate. Okay. Now, I'm very sure that we will not be able to understand this without an example. So let us first discuss an example and then I'll come back to this. Okay, let me give you an example first and then I will come back to the proviso. Now, let's say, for example, you have PepsiCo Inc. Okay. Now, this is a company incorporated. Okay, so this is a company incorporated outside India. But it also has a subsidiary in India. Okay, and that is in the name of PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited. This is a subsidiary incorporated in India. The word India is used because they have subsidiaries across the world. So they just want to give an indication that this is a subsidiary which is incorporated in India. That is why they write the word India. Now, because this is a subsidiary incorporated in India, it means it is a company under Section 2, Clause 20 of the Act, which also means it implies that Companies Act 2013 applies to this company. Yes. Now, this company will follow the financial year. Therefore, what will be the financial year? 1st of April to 31st of March. Because it is a company incorporated in India, the Companies Act will apply, and for that, the financial year will be from 1st of April to 31st of March. Now, let's say, for example, that the parent company, okay, the parent company is following the financial year, which is a calendar year, because their law allows, okay, it is incorporated outside India, and where it is incorporated, they allow the financial statements to be prepared. The financial statements are prepared for a calendar year because their law allows. So that will be from 1st of January till 31st of December. Now, we need to consolidate their accounts. Okay. It is required that holding and subsidiaries financial statements have to be consolidated. Now, how is it possible? One company is following the calendar year for preparation of its books and financial statements, and the other company is following the financial year mentioned in our act, that is from 1st of April. Now, one company is following calendar year, other company is maintaining books as per the financial year. It is not possible for us to consolidate both the books, and it is possible, but it will be very difficult. So, in order to enable consolidation, we have allowed the company incorporated in India to follow another period as the financial year. So we are giving them the liberty. Okay, if you want to follow calendar year, you follow it. If you want to follow any other period, now if we have given so much liberty, might as well allow them to follow any other year. You want to prepare your accounts from 1st of February to 31st of March, 31st of January. Yes. You want to follow any other period of 12 months. Now that is your choice. So in order to enable consolidation of the books, consolidation means we are adding the book to show to show the broader picture of the entire group. So if you want, you can follow any other period which may or may not be a year. That is up to you. Now we are giving you full liberty. You want to make the financial statements for 9 months, for 12 months, you want to follow from 1st of March to 28th of Feb. That is your call now. So that liberty has been given to the company. I will give you time to copy the notes, but first let us read and understand the concept. Okay, and then you can copy. Provided that where a body corporate or a company which is a holding company, in my example, it will be PepsiCo Inc. Okay, it is a company or a body corporate which is the holding company. Now, in my example, sorry, it should be PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited. Here we will write incorporated, outside here we will write PepsiCo Inc. Okay. Now, you are a company which is a subsidiary of a company incorporated outside India. So PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited is, in my example, a subsidiary of a company incorporated outside India, that is PepsiCo Inc. And that other company, okay, is required to follow a financial year for consolidation of its accounts outside India. So what is the company that they are referring to? Okay, a company which is a subsidiary of a company incorporated outside India is required to follow a different financial year for consolidation. Now, what company are they referring to over here? PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited. Okay. So if you are allowed, if you are required to prepare your financial statements following a different financial year, then you do one thing. You make an application to the central government. Now, who will make the application to the central government? It is the PepsiCo India Holdings Private Limited. They will make an application to the central government. So let's do one thing. Let us write that also in our note. Okay. Just write it below over here. So PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited, they will make an application to the central government that, listen, for consolidation purpose, we need to follow a different financial year. Okay, so they will make an application and then the central government will allow to follow different period as the financial year. Okay. So let us highlight this. Who will make an application? PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited. They will make an application to the central government and then the central government will be, they will allow. And then you now can follow calendar year or any other period. We are giving you full liberty. Alright, so now you write this note and then we will continue reading. Write this in your notebook. Done writing? Okay, let us continue. The central government may, on an application by that company, which company has to make the application? That means India Holdings, PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited. That company will make the application in such form and manner as may be prescribed, and we will allow any period as the financial year, whether or not that period is a year, means whether or not that period is of 12 months. Okay, so we will allow any period to become your financial year. We are giving you full liberty. Okay. So which company has to make an application? PepsiCo Holdings India Private Limited. They have to make an. Now, next, let us discuss the concept of a foreign company. What is the meaning of a foreign company? We had studied this earlier also. Yes, what is a foreign company? It is defined under Section 2, Clause 42 of the Act. So, foreign company means a company which is incorporated outside India, but it is having a place of business in India. So, for that business which is in India, you need to follow the Indian Companies Act. You cannot say, no, this is allowed in my foreign company, nothing doing. If you are doing business in India, then for that business, you will have to follow the Companies Act. Foreign company, we are going to discuss this again in detail when we come to the chapter types of companies. I am also going to discuss what is the meaning of electronic mode, and we are going to solve a few questions also on that. So here it is just something which you already know. Foreign company means a company or a body corporate. Let us highlight incorporated outside India. Okay, this is my keyword. It is incorporated outside India, but it is having a place of business in India. Now, that place may be, you are having it on your own, like you have your own factory or a plant or a setup, or it may be through an agent. You may be present physically, you may be present electronically, we are not concerned. And you conduct business activity in India in any other manner. Okay. So it is important that you are present in India, you're doing business in India. You may be present on your own, or you may be present through an agent, you may be present physically or simply by electronic mode. So what is the meaning of electronic mode? Let us highlight the word electronic mode and write down something else relating to it. Electronic mode means you may be present through mobile, SMS, social media, yeah, or data computing. You are present digitally. Okay. Now, later on, we are going to study that what is included in the word electronic mode that is covered in Rule 2. Now, you remember I had discussed that these rules, they provide extra information. So, what is covered in electronic mode? That will be given in Rule 2 of companies. Specification of definition details, rules 2000. Okay. So this is the rule where we will find, and we are going to discuss that later. We will find what is the meaning of the word electronic mode. Now you are although incorporated outside India, but you have a shop, you have a factory, you have a plant, you have some kind of manufacturing, or you're doing it through an agent in India. So for that Indian business, the Indian laws will apply. What is the meaning of any other manner? Now, there was a company, and the directors of the company, they would come to India, stay in one hotel, and they would enter into transactions for doing business, buying and selling of machinery. That hotel was considered to be a place of business in India. Next, we have the definition of free reserves. Now, free reserves we are going to cover in detail in the chapter shares and share capital. So I don't want to cover it now because I want to relate this with few other concepts also. Okay. Simply put, free reserves. Free, it means these are reserves which can be used for distribution of dividend. There is no particular purpose attached to it. Okay, so free reserves means the reserves which are available for distribution in the form of dividend. You are free to distribute it. There is no particular purpose for which these reserves are assigned. Okay, they are free reserves. Next, we have the definition of global depository receipt. Again, I'm going to cover that in the chapter prospectus and allotment. Now, why am I doing that? See, ICAI has covered this in the definition part itself. Okay, they have not, bifurcated that. So there are so many concepts like private company, public company, which they have put here. But I have classified everything properly. The definitions we are going to study here, types of companies we are going to study in a separate chapter. That is why you may find some difference. And, we are moving here and there. Otherwise, I could have explained over here, but then the chapter would have been very long. And we need to complete this also, right? Okay, so global depository receipts I will cover in the next chapter. Next, let us discuss the concept of a government company. Very, very, very important. For exam, you need to memorize the clause also. So section 2, clause 51, clause 45 defines a government company. 51 is key managerial personnel. Now, what is a government company? At least 51%. This is the most important part, and questions are asked on this only. Where not less than 51% of the paid up share capital is held, let us highlight, either by the central government on its own, or by state government or governments, one or two, or partly by central and partly by one or two state governments. Okay, let us mark and so that we are able to learn. So 51%, at least 51% of the paid up share capital is held either by the central government, one or more state governments, or partly by central and partly by one or more state governments. It also includes, a company which is a subsidiary of such government company. It means that the provisions of government company will apply to this subsidiary also. Now, let us first make notes and then I will give you the reason for defining a government company. So, the 51% of the paid up share capital is held either by the central government or by one or more state governments, or partly by central government, partly by one or more state governments. Okay, so this is how you will write so that you are able to learn it. The subsidiary is also considered as a government company. I have few examples for you, but before that, let us understand why define a government company. Now, provisions in the Companies Act are sometimes separate for a government company. It is either more strict or it is slightly lenient. Okay. Like to give you an example, the auditor of a company is appointed by the members in the general meeting, but the auditor of a government company is appointed by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. So there are many places where the provisions may be different for a government company. So it is better that we define the meaning of a government company. Yes, that is why you will find the definition. Now, I'll give you an example of the subsidiaries also. You can write the name in your notebook, but first understand. Did I show you this note? Yeah, I think you wrote, na? If I forgot, then please write this. I don't remember stopping. You wrote this, right? Okay. So, we have Bharat Coking Coal Limited, which is a subsidiary of Coal India. And we have the Central Coalfields Limited. It is a subsidiary. Now, because they are subsidiaries of a government company, they are also considered as government company. The provisions which apply to government company shall apply to these subsidiaries also. Okay. I have one more example. So we have Power Finance Corporation Limited. This is a government company. It has two subsidiaries. The provisions of a government company shall apply to these subsidiaries also. Now, I have one doubt for you. These are government companies. Does it mean that this is the government itself? No, that's not the case. Government is only a shareholder. Government has only invested in this company. It doesn't mean that this has become the government itself. What if this company is bankrupt? Does it mean that the central government which has invested, that central government is also bankrupt? No. Company is a separate person. In the eyes of law, it is separate and distinct from the members. Central government or the state government has only invested money in this company. This doesn't mean that this has become the government itself. The employees of the government company are not employees of the government. They are not employees of the central government or the state government. Like say, for example, municipal hospitals. municipal schools, the people who work there, they are government employees. But here, central government or the state government is only a member. They've just invested. This company goes bankrupt doesn't mean that the government has also gone bankrupt. Company is a separate person from the members. So at least 51% is held by them and subsidiaries also considered. Now, in case the government company has issued shares with differential voting rights, instead of the paid up capital, we will consider total voting power. What are DVRs? We are going to discuss later, but just to give you a heads up, let's say I have 10 shares. That will give me just one vote. What is the normal voting pattern? One share, one vote, right? This is normal. One share, one vote. These are plain vanilla shares. Plain vanilla means there are no nuts, there is no rose syrup, there is no chocolate syrup. It is simple. One share, one vote. So I have 10 shares, I will get 10 votes. But what about DVRs? Shares with differential voting rights. Company says if you have 10 shares, we will give you one vote. We will allow you just one vote. If you have 10 shares, you will get just one vote. Ma'am, who will agree to this? Why give up our voting power? If you are giving up something, you will get something in return, right? If the company is giving up their voting power, they are getting more dividend. They will get more dividend than normal shares. Then, ma'am, everybody should buy this. But it's not very popular. Not all the companies will want to do this. And also, I don't want to sacrifice my voting power. I will not go to vote anytime. But I don't want to sacrifice my voting power. Okay. So these are DVRs. We are going to discuss again in detail when we come to the chapter share and share capital. I have a question for you. Now, this is the question, okay? X is a company in which 25% of the shares are held by central government, 10% by government of Gujarat, 15% by central government and government of Rajasthan. Is this a government company? No, why no? When you add this, how much do you get? 50%. And how much do I want? 51%. Is this a government company? No. No, it is not a government company. You need holding of minimum paid up capital 51%. Got it? Okay. So now you can take time to write the examples. These are examples for the holding subsidiary. Write this. And this is another example. This is the question which you can copy in your notebook. And this is the answer. Done writing? Okay. So that was the concept of a government company. Next, we have holding company. It's a very silly definition. I am holding if you are my subsidiary. So we need to understand who is a subsidiary company. I am holding if you become my subsidiary. If you qualify as my subsidiary, then automatically I become holding. So holding means in relation to one or more other companies. It means in relation you can have one or more subsidiaries. So in relation to one or more companies, it means a company of which such companies are subsidiary companies. Now, in relation to one or more companies, holding means a company of which such other companies. Okay, these. I am holding if you are my subsidiary. Ignore, we'll cover it later with subsidiary company. This you don't have in the exam. Issued capital means the capital which we issue from time to time for subscription. Can I say this amounts to offer? Yes. Issued capital is nothing but offer. Subscribed capital is acceptance. Next, we have one very important definition of key managerial personnel, KMP. They are very important people in the company. They occupy key positions in the company. In case anything goes wrong in the company, they will be held liable. Ma'am, why is it so? Because they are the decision makers. So they will be held liable. Now, it is very important for every company to have a clear list of KMPs. Otherwise, government has the power to consider any person as KMP. I'll tell you why. firstly, in relation to a company, now see the definitions are so beautifully drafted. We are giving that this definition is to be read in context of, in relation to a company, key managerial personnel will include the CEO, manager, managing director, company secretary, whole-time director, chief financial officer, any such other officer not more than one level below the director who is in whole-time employment, designated as key managerial personnel by the board. Any such officer as may be prescribed. As of now, no other officer has been prescribed by the definition. Okay, now who is the key managerial personnel? It is the CEO, manager, managing director. Now, who are managers and managing director? We will be discussing very soon. Company secretary, whole-time director, CFO. We discussed CEO and CFO last time. Any other officer not more than one level below. Like I have the director. Now, do you think that the directors do all the work? They have an associate director just below, one level below the director. You have an associate director. Okay. Now, this associate director is considered as KMP if determined by the board. So, board says that he is also very important because he is working under just below the director. So, he does all the work of the director. He is also a key managerial personnel. He is designated as KMP by the board. Now, by default, these people are KMP. This person will be designated by the board. Okay, board says this person is also KMP. If the government wants, they can prescribe any other officer as KMP. So central government has the power to prescribe. Right now, they have not prescribed in the definition. But if they want, they can come to your company and say this person is also KMP. So it is very important for every company to have a KMP policy, to have a list that these are my KMPs. Otherwise, we can hold any person liable. So it is always better to advise your client to have a list of KMPs. Will this be asked in the exam? Only the definition can be asked. I don't think any questions have been framed. But yes, we need to know the definition. Listed company, again, I will discuss in chapter 2 because it's a very lengthy discussion. Next, let us discuss the concept of manager and managing director. If you want, students, you can just pause the video and take 5 to 10 minutes of break. I'm going to cover till the concept of memorandum. Okay, so till M, we are going to cover in today's session. If you want, now is the time when you can take 5 to 10 minutes of break, but please come back and continue watching the lecture. Okay. So, who is exactly a managing director and who is a managing director? Now, what we will do is we will connect one sentence. Okay. See, it is possible to connect. So, that will also give you a comparison. All right. Now, who is a manager and how is he different from a managing director, MD? So, who is a manager and who can be a manager? So, only an individual, let us highlight, only an individual can be a manager. Only a director can be a managing director. Now, why is it mentioned that only an individual? Okay. Now, the definition actually provides the meaning of the word. See, at many places you find it includes. That's an inclusive definition. Here they have written it means. Whenever the word means is given, it means that the definition is actually trying to explain the meaning of that term. So, who is a manager? It's an individual. Now, then so many people in the company, you have members, you have directors, you have body corporate. Because artificial person or a body corporate can also purchase shares. Yes. So, are we talking about natural persons or are we talking about artificial also? So, the definition brings a lot of clarity. See, we are not talking about an artificial person. We are talking only about an individual. Ma'am, why? Because only the individual can have a mind of its own to manage the company, to take decisions. Artificial person doesn't have a mind of its own to take decisions, to direct, to control. So only an individual is capable of becoming a managing director. Then ma'am, who can become a director? An individual. Yes, so managing director will also be an individual, but that individual who is first a director. So individual who is a director can then be appointed as the managing director. I know you have some doubt over here. Ma'am, can a director be appointed as a manager? Is that possible? Yes. Because for a manager, the only requirement is that he should be an individual, a living person. So even a director can become a manager. Tell me one thing. Can a manager become a managing director? No, no, no. He's not a director, no? Are you getting me? So let me write it over here. A director can be appointed as either manager or a managing director. Okay. But an individual okay, who is not a director, all right, can be appointed only as a manager. So if you are an individual and you're also a director, then you can be appointed either as a manager or a managing director. But if you're an individual and you're not a director, okay. So if you want to be, sorry, if you're an individual and you are also a director, you can be appointed either as a manager or a managing director. But if you're an individual and you're not a director, you can be appointed only as a manager. Is this clear? So this is the relevance of the first sentence. Manager means an individual. Individual means he must be a natural person. We cannot allow an artificial person because they don't have a mind of their own. They cannot take decisions. And here he has to be a director. Ma'am, I know a person who is sales manager. I know one friend who is the purchase manager. Are we talking about them? No. We are not talking about one who controls the team or a department. We are talking about someone who manages the company. Okay. So when we talk about manager, we are not talking about the sales manager, purchase manager. We are talking about someone who manages the whole company. Let's go through the next sentence. Subject to, okay, all right. Manager is a person who is an individual, but he is subject to the superintendent's control, direction of the board. Does he act independently? Can he say, bol diya to bol diya? My word is final. I will take the shots. I will call the shots. You have to do what I say. No. I agree that he is the one who's managing the company, but he is under the control, under the superintendence. Superintendence means we supervise him. He is under the control and he only follows the directions, the instructions of the board of directors. So can I put a hierarchy that board of directors, they will give instructions to the manager and then the manager will execute those instructions. Okay, so they will give the direction or they will give instructions and then he will execute those instructions. So he is not someone who has a lot of power. He follows and executes the instructions, the directions of the board of directors. So he is subject to, it means that you will work under the board. You are subject to their control, their supervision, their direction. What about a managing director? Now, managing director, he becomes a managing director by virtue of, it means his name is written in the articles, or maybe there is some agreement with the company, or a resolution is passed in the general meeting, or by the board of directors. So, can I from this conclude that resolution appointing him as the managing director the resolution may be passed either by the board or by the members? Board will pass this in the board meeting, and members, when they meet, that is known as general meeting. Okay. Let us go through it once again. The manager is under the control of the board of directors, whereas the managing director, he is appointed by virtue of articles of the company. His name is written in the articles. Let us highlight like this. Articles, or you have entered into an agreement with a company and we say that this person is the managing director, or by a resolution which is passed either in the board meeting or the general meeting. Then we talk about their powers. Okay. The manager, he has the power to manage the whole or substantially the whole of the affairs of the company. So he can either take care of the entire company, or substantially, it means most of the powers are with him. Okay. So he manages either the whole of the affairs, like what is to be done, what decisions are to be made, or substantially, it means to a great extent we have given him control. What about the managing director? He is entrusted with substantial powers of management of the affairs of the company. I don't understand this. How can two persons have substantially the whole power of management? I don't understand this. You cannot give two persons the power to substantially manage the affairs of the company. So from this, can I conclude that in a company, you can have either manager or managing director. You cannot have both at the same time. Yes. So what do we conclude from this? Company can have either manager or managing director, not both, because I cannot give both substantial powers. It is not possible that manager has whole and managing director has substantial. It's not possible. Okay. Now, managing director includes a director occupying the position of a managing director. So, can I say to be a managing director, you need to be a director? I am not a director. I cannot be a managing director. But manager includes a director or any other person occupying the position of the manager by whatever name called, whether he is under the contract of service, it means whether he is employed or not. It simply means that to be a managing director, you have to be a director. But to be a manager, you may or may not be a director. I just need an individual. So even a director can be appointed as a manager, or any other person can also be appointed as a manager. I hope this is clear. All right. So this is something that you must know. Okay. Just write all this, highlight whatever is necessary. I'll wait for you. Finish writing. Now, they have also given some explanation because they know that people will have doubt. Now, I get to sign all the checks. I have substantial power. Law says no, signing of check is a routine power. Just because we've given you the power, don't start considering yourself as the managing director or the manager having substantial powers. No. For the purpose of this clause, power to do administrative acts. Okay, we have given you power to do administrative acts of routine nature. Okay. Like, for example, affixing common seal. Array, I affix the common seal. That's routine. I get to draw, endorse, check on account of the company. I get to draw a check. Routine. I get to draw, endorse, negotiable instrument. Routine. I get to sign any certificate of share or direct the registration of transfer. I am in charge of giving the share certificate, registering the transfer. Routine work. Now, they have mentioned that for the purpose of this act, even though you may feel that you have substantial power, this is a routine work. You are not a manager or a managing director. For an individual to be called a managing director, he must first be a director which is duly appointed by the company. It implies that an individual who is not a director cannot be a managing director of the company. This is something which I already discussed with you, but I have written this in the form of text so that you don't forget. So you have to be a director first. If you are just an individual, you are not a director, you cannot be a managing director. Okay, just highlight all these points. Okay. If we keep repeating, it is easy for us to learn. So in over here only, please write something about manager, and here you write managing director. I know this sounds repetitive, but I want you to keep writing it so that you learn. Managing director, he must be director of the company. Highlight the word director. And over here you will write manager need not be a director of the company. Highlight the word need not be director. Okay. Need not means he may or may not be. Okay, what is the need means? He may or may not be. In fact, manager is, you can write down. No, I'll write up here. You also write it there. Manager, he is under the superintendence or control or direction of the board. Okay. So he is not a director. In fact, he is under the control of the directors. Are you getting why I wrote this point? He is not a director. In fact, he is under the control of the director. Got it? Okay. Next, let us discuss the concept of member. Now, there was a time when all this was discussed in detail in your syllabus, but then later on, I saw that not much importance was given to the concept of membership. It is just in the form of definition. So that is why we are not discussing this in detail. Now, who is a member? And we always thought that member and shareholder, they are the same. Most of the times, yes. In most of the cases, member and shareholder, they are the same. But there are certain circumstances where I may be a member, but I don't have shares. Or I may be a shareholder, but I'm not a member. Who is a member? Member is a person whose name appears in the register of members. So if my name is mentioned in the register, I am a member. If my name is not mentioned in the register, I am not a member. It's as simple as that. So person who's a member, it means his name is entered in the register of members. Okay. So member, you will write over here, person whose name is entered in the register of members, he is known as a member. Okay. Now, I have a note for you so that you are able to learn and understand this concept. Member means a person whose name appears in the register. They enjoy various rights. Now, you may be wondering, ma'am, what is the difference? Like, what happens if my name appears in the register? Like, what have I achieved? As a member, you get to enjoy various rights like right to receive notice of the meeting, right to attend vote at the meeting, right to call a meeting, right to receive dividend, share certificate, etc. As a shareholder, you are only the owner of those shares. You don't get to exercise these rights. You will get to exercise the right to call a meeting, to receive a notice, etc. only when you become a member, only when your name is entered in the register. And what about dividend? Yes, as a shareholder, you may get dividend, but member enjoys many other rights except dividend. Now, there are various modes of acquiring membership. One is that you can become a subscriber to the memorandum. Now, who is a subscriber? Subscriber is a person who signs the memorandum and agrees to purchase the number of shares mentioned against his name. When we discuss the memorandum chapter, I will show you the actual memorandum of my company. In that, you will find that my company was incorporated by two people. It's a private company. So there are two people who incorporated that company, me and my friend. Okay. Then later on, he left. That is another story. It's not a one person company now. Then my husband, he became the member of the company. So shares were sold to him. Now, so I have a company, yes, in which there are two members. I have in my memorandum mentioned that I will bring in 1 lakh as capital. Face value is 10. I will get 10,000 shares from the company. There is a small table in the memorandum wherein my name, my address, the amount that I'm going to contribute, everything is just agreement. Like when I incorporated the company, I didn't like, okay, I have written it means now immediately I need to transfer the money. I didn't do that. It's just mentioned that you will bring. I can bring it later also. But as soon as my name was mentioned in the memorandum and 10,000 shares of 10 rupees each, 1 lakh was mentioned, it means I became a subscriber. I subscribed to the memorandum means I signed and then I filed it with ROC for registration. So because I'm signing the memorandum, I become the subscriber and subscriber is the first member of the company. But ma'am, we have not yet allotted shares to him. He has not even given us the money. Doesn't matter. Even if allotments are not made, even if his name is not entered in the register, he is still considered as a member. Why? What is the hurry? See, what if I incorporated the company, okay? And I also incurred liability. Now we are saying, no, we don't want to work together. I want to dissolve the company. But you have already incurred liability. You need to pay the creditors. From where will you get money? Subscribers. You are a member. You have to bring in whatever amount was mentioned against your name. We can claim that amount from him only because he is a member. So subscriber, they become members as soon as they agree to purchase the shares, ma'am, but they have not even given an application. Allotment is not made. Their name is also not mentioned in the register. They are still considered as the member. If something goes wrong, they have to bring in the amount that they had mentioned in the memorandum that we will bring. You have to contribute. You have agreed. You have to contribute. Subscriber cannot refuse to purchase the shares later. Now, this hurry is only because we want that someone should bring in money to pay the creditors if something goes wrong in the company and it is wound up immediately. You can also become a member in writing. I can later on give an application, but writing, okay, not oral. I need to be in writing because it is a requirement of law. Law says member can become a person can become a member only in writing. So writing is one of the modes of becoming a member. So it has to be in writing. Oral application will not be valid. Allotment under oral application is also void. Simply entering the name. Okay, I don't want application from you. I have simply entered your name in the register. That will not make you a member. Are you a subscriber? No. Then you have to apply in writing. Just writing your name in the register without receiving any written application will not make you a member. So written application is required. Oral application is not valid. Even if I make allotments against oral application, that allotment is void. mere entry in the register of members is also not valid. I need written application. But ma'am, nowadays we don't do that. See, when you apply for an IPO, we don't make any written application, but application goes through your bank account, and you must have submitted certain documents to the depository allowing, no, not depository. You must have given the power of attorney to your broker that okay, you make the application for me. So now because everything has become online, I totally agree that written application form etc. is not submitted when you apply for IPOs. But then these provisions simply say that some kind of communication needs to go from the member. Oral is not valid. Something should be in writing. Although it may be online, it is still printable. It is still, you have some record, no? Oral, there is no record. What if tomorrow I say, I didn't make this application. I never promised to purchase the shares. So I need something in writing. If it is going through my bank account, there is some written record. And if my name appears in the records of beneficiary, as a beneficiary in the records of the depository, this is something which I'm talking, which is relevant nowadays because everything is in DMAT form. So if my name is written in the record of the depository, I am a member. Now, why is this relevant for me? See, it is not possible that the company updates the register every day. If the shares are in the DMAT form, the records which are maintained by the depository is considered as if it is the register maintained by the company. Okay. So company doesn't manually go on updating the records, or they don't call for soft copy from the depository, make changes, update. No. Whatever records are maintained by the depository is where my shares are in the DMAT form. Yes. So wherever, so if the depository is maintaining the record, that those records are considered as the register. Now, I mentioned that sometimes we are a member, we are not a shareholder. When does that happen? X died. His shares go to the legal representative. He immediately becomes a shareholder because he has the shares now. So he died and the shares went to the legal representative. He's a shareholder. Now he has to decide whether he wants to become a member or he wants to sell the shares further. So he makes an application to the company that I want to become a member. Just a minute. So he makes an application. His name is also entered in the register of members. He will become a member. But if he says, no, I don't want to become a member, he remains just a shareholder, he can transfer the shares further. But ma'am, how can he transfer? He's just a shareholder. He's not an owner. It's an exception. Even though he's not the owner, we can transfer. So law says that as soon as you get the shares, you become the shareholder, but you are not a member because your name is not written in the register. Once your name comes in the register, then now you are not only a shareholder but also a member. Ma'am, X sold his shares to Y. But the transfer formalities take time, no? I'm assuming shares are in the physical form. He has sold the shares. Y becomes the shareholder because he has shares. But X is still a member because his name is appearing in the register. So till the formalities are not completed, okay, transfer formalities are still going on. X's name appears in the register, he is the member. But because Y has purchased the shares, he becomes a shareholder. So sometimes you may be a shareholder, you may not be a member. May be a member, you may not be a, you may be a member, but you are not a shareholder because you don't have the shares. Okay. So in this case, I got the shares, I became a shareholder, but I am not a member because my name is not in the register. Here I am still a member, even though I have transferred shares because till now my name appears in the register. Once the transfer formalities are completed, he will become the member. So there are certain circumstances where a person may be a member, not a shareholder, shareholder, not a member. If you want to write this, you may do so. Otherwise, if you don't want to write, it's okay because anyways, this is not going to be asked in the exam. This is what was written over here. Okay? All the 3 points. Memorandum, that is clause 56. It means memorandum which was originally framed, very similar to the definition of articles. Originally framed means at the time of incorporation. But it also includes a memorandum altered from time to time. Okay, so this talks about alteration. So if there are no alterations, then the memorandum which was filed with the ROC, that is my memorandum. But if I have made changes, then the updated one is considered as the memorandum of the company. Not very important for exam. So students, this was today's session where we discussed the clauses which begin with the letter F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M. Few were missed because they were not relevant, but many clauses were covered today. I want you to take a small break, have your lunch or whatever activity that is pending. Then you will sit today only and you will learn whatever was discussed in today's session. And then you will watch the next video. Okay. So learning is very important. In your notebook, please go on writing all these keywords. Okay. Whenever you learn the definition, write these keywords, write and practice. Writing everything. Just I used to keep a blank paper with me. I used to study in the library and I used to take blank paper. I used to just keep on writing. Okay, when I'm thinking in my mind, I used to just go on writing the keywords. And that is how I managed to learn. So you also keep on writing and I will see you next time where we continue with this chapter and we will discuss a few more definitions. So I'll see you there.